It is my great pleasure and honor to introduce United States Senator Chris Dodd. Chris Dodd is a tremendous champion of national service with a deep understanding of the power and potential of service to transform lives and communities. Drawing upon his firsthand experience in the Peace Corps, he has worked tirelessly as a leading advocate for expanding and promoting service opportunities and elevating the concepts of service as a national priority. His passionate vision for service led Senator Dodd to co-found together with Senator Tad Cochran the National Service Congressional Caucus in the United States Senate. Senator Dodd has championed a broad series of legislative initiatives that would create opportunities and support for allowing people to serve from all ages and stages and backgrounds. Setting the bar to a new high, Senator Dodd has called for AmeriCorps to grow to 1 million members annually. He is an inspiring leader and a force for change in the national service movement and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Senator Chris Dodd.
Thank you very, very much. Very nice. Well, thank you very much. And let me, before beginning these brief remarks, let me first of all admire your patience in all of this. This is there was a wonderfully colorful member of the United States Congress a few years ago, Morris Udall of Arizona. And Morris Udall, at an event like this, might have said, everything has been said, but not everyone has said it. And so you're going to have to bear with me here. And first of all, let me join those who want to commend Alan for his tremendous work. He deserves another round of applause. Alan Casey, thank you once again for your remarkable leadership. Let me thank, of course, the organizers of this great summit, Time Magazine, AARP. It's a fading memory for most Americans, but I was actually a presidential candidate in the last year and a half, and I used to say I'm a father of a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and also a member of AARP. I used to say I was the only candidate who got mail from diaper services and AARP as a kind of a broad reach. But to be here today and to participate in this program, in a sense to share with you a journey, I suppose, in a way, and you've some indication of it with Michael's very generous introduction, and that is having been a former Peace Corps volunteer, having served in the United States military, having been a big brother on the National Board of Big Brothers, come from a family of educators, service has been a very part of my life. And now as a member of the United States Senate, how I utilize that background and experience to see to it that we expand that opportunity. And so this afternoon, let me share with you some brief thoughts and ideas that I'd like to incorporate as part of the summit's consideration. First of all, again, I want to thank Michael Brown and the wonderful work he does. The work that City Year is doing is nothing less than extraordinary. And my congratulations to all of you involved in City Year programs. I also want to take a minute, if I can, to thank my friend and colleague Ted Kennedy, who I just spoke with on the phone before I walked in this room. And he is deeply sorry he couldn't be here. Obviously, we all know what he's going through physically, recovering from a serious illness. But he cares deeply about these issues. He has throughout his entire public life. And our fervent hope is he'll be back in the United States Senate come January to see to it that the Kennedy Hatch bill becomes the law of the land. And that's our first goal. There's been no greater champion of the ideals and goals that we're discussing at this very summit. And he'll be fighting every step of the way to turn them into reality when he comes back to Congress. I also want to thank ServiceNation for this historic summit as well, and for recognizing that when it comes to ushering in a new era of service and civic engagement, this is truly the moment, a unique moment. It is, in effect, the equivalency of that perfect storm of challenges and opportunities for our country. And seizing that moment, it is what your Declaration of Service is all about. And let me be among the first of members of the United States Congress to say that I'm honored to sign on to it as a commitment to you here this afternoon. It is it's also a unique moment. This has already been referred to in the limited time I've been here. As yesterday's forum showed us all, perhaps for the very first time in our history as a nation, we have two candidates for the United States presidency who have served their country admirably and whose service to their country played a very formative role in shaping their lives, their careers, who they are, and the kinds of presidencies theirs would be. And whatever our political differences, and obviously there are those, our democracy, in my view, will be a lot stronger because we've had candidates who have served our country. And John McCain, obviously, we all know his story as a candidate who served his country in the United States military and suffered terribly as a result of that service, putting himself at such risk. And with Barack Obama, America has a candidate who has hands-on experience in serving communities in the city of Chicago, helping to create opportunities and lift up people knocked down, if we will, by the serious economic challenges that have been referred to. Their examples of service remind all of us what's important is, or what isn't important is who you serve, or where you serve, or in what capacity. What is important is that you serve. That's what's important, and what both these individuals, I think, bring to that candidacy. It's that you know what it means to join a cause and to defend your country. It's that you know what it means to live and serve the poorest of our fellow citizens, that implicit reminder of our relative wealth and the immense good fortune we have as a people. So I'm honored to stand before you this afternoon as someone who has been fortunate to have done both. My journey began 47 years ago, standing with my family as a young child on the east front of the United States Capitol. The date was January 20th, 1960. The moment was the inauguration of John Fitzgerald Kennedy to be the next president of the United States. And like millions of others on that frozen, crystal-clear, cold day, I heard President Kennedy call us as a nation and as individuals to service to our nation. And like thousands of others, I was so excited by an American president challenging our nation and our people to be a part of something larger than themselves. In effect, that call to service. And those of you not old enough in this room today to remember those days, let me tell you what it felt like to be an American and to be young and to have an American president invite a nation to be a part of things larger than themselves. Some of us joined the Peace Corps, others went to Vista, some went to the Justice Department, others went to military, but everybody felt they could make a difference for our country. That was the inspiration of the moment. And I can tell you honestly, I haven't felt that strong emotion over the last number of years as I feel it today with what Alan, what City here are doing, and others. It's back, we're here, and we're going to make a difference. And you're a part of it. And that's why it feels good to be an American. Well, in those days, I was a recent college graduate. I was about to become one, studying English literature, didn't speak a word of Spanish, by the way. And I joined the Peace Corps and was sent to the Dominican Republic, where I worked on building schools, a maternity clinic, and a library. I learned about another culture and another language and acquired a deeper appreciation of the land of my birth, as all sorts of service can do, in that case overseas. And after I returned home, I served for 6 years as a member of the Army National Guard and Army Reserves. Both experiences, I want you to know, were enriching and incredibly invaluable and have made a deep impression on my life and what I've done or tried to do as a member of the United States Congress, member of the Senate over these last 28 years. I had never worked so hard in my life as I did that first summer in the Peace Corps as a volunteer in the Dominican Republic. The first thing I was asked, of course, is why I didn't speak Spanish any better than I did. And I'll never forget my answer. I said, "¿Por qué estoy embarazado?" I thought I was saying I was embarrassed. I had announced to the audience I was pregnant here without Spanish. Well, I quickly learned to speak Spanish. But there was another question I was receiving in those days as well that came from almost everybody in that small village in the mountains of the Dominican Republic. And the question was, ¿Por qué viniste? Why did you come here? Why did you decide to leave your home, leave your country, and come to live with us in this relatively poor village? I had a simple answer for them, the same answer I've given literally thousands of times over the past 47 years. And the answer was because an American president named John Kennedy asked me to. It's the same answer I said I've given over the years. And some 40-odd years later, and a few pounds heavier with a few more gray hairs on my head, if anything, with a greater sense of purpose and love of our country, that I've joined with you the last several years in dedicating so much of my efforts in the United States Congress to this idea and this ideal that we call national service. And it's appropriate that we meet today, that you gather in this summit, and how important this gathering can be. Because while September 11th showed us that our world had changed forever, it was on September 12th that reminded us that Americans had not. the community blood drives, heroic efforts of our nation's first responders, volunteers, people wanting to help and contribute, doing everything we could to see our nation heal from that wound. All were a very powerful reminder that Americans are not only always ready when their country calls, but that we want to be asked. We want to be invited to be a part of the solutions to our country. We want to be a part of efforts larger than ourselves. And looking back, we had seen this enduring part of the American character so many times before, and we've heard the examples already here this afternoon. Certainly the efforts of World War II, what a nation did, gathering steam quickly to make it possible for us to face the great challenges posed by the Axis powers. And more recently, of course, as you've heard again today, we saw the nation respond to those who suffered deeply in the wake of Hurricane Katrina in the Gulf states. And with our challenges steadily mounting in so many ways, and I don't need to remind this audience of all those challenges we face, with millions of families in this country losing confidence and optimism about not only their future, but the future of their children and their grandchildren. 14 million of our youngest people have no a health care system that is barely able to hold itself together. Veterans and seniors unable to get the treatment that they were promised or retire with the dignity that they've certainly earned over the years. More than at any time in recent memory, we need to call upon our collective imaginations, our ideas, our energy, and our resolve. And that's what this summit is about and what we need to carry from here if we're going to succeed in this effort. Now, some may question whether America can harness the spirit of service, not just in times of crisis, but each and every day. It's a legitimate question. Well, I stand before you today to say I've never questioned that, neither have you, and we never will. And you heard it on the last panel from Valerie when she said her generation is as prepared as any previous generation to respond to that call of service. You travel across our country, any state you want to go to, any community, and you find Americans everywhere not divided in their comfort, but united in their restlessness, in my view, for a deeper sense of community required of a free society like ours. Not simply occupied with their own day-to-day struggles, but hungry, I believe, to be awakened to a renewed sense of national purpose, of shared experiences and sacrifices. And that's why I use every forum available to me to support this cause. I'm offering ideas in the United States Senate. I did during my brief run in the presidential campaign, tapping into the minds of those serving today, from Peace Corps volunteers I met traveling abroad to City Year Corps volunteers back in my community, such as Bridgeport, Connecticut. And while a fading memory, as I said a moment ago, for most, having been a presidential candidate, I made national service the centerpiece of my presidential campaign, to talk about this issue. I was, as my great friend Harris Wofford knows, I was the first former Peace Corps volunteer to be elected to the United States Congress back in 1974. I might add, along with Paul Tsongas of Massachusetts. And Paul Tsongas was a former volunteer as well, having served in Ethiopia. Of course, you may recall we've now both run for the presidency and both lost. And so if you have any plans of running for the presidency, don't join the Peace Corps, is my quick advice to you here. But I'm glad that I used that presidential campaign to elevate what I believe is the importance of service. With the help of many of you, I authored a comprehensive national service plan, the goal of which was to create nothing less than the first generation in which every single American would have the opportunity to serve their communities and their nation from kindergarten through retirement. And that's how we ought to be looking at it, from our youngest to our oldest citizens. And I was pleased last evening watching the discussions conducted by Judy Woodruff with our presidential candidates, and I congratulate Service America here for bringing, Service Nation for bringing together our presidential candidates in a unique forum, as David Gergen pointed out. And I'm very pleased that Barack Obama has adopted the ideas that we talked about as part of our national service campaign, as part of his presidential efforts. And my very good friend, it is my good friend John McCain, and my colleague in the United States Senate, I hope as well, will adopt these what ought to be universal, nonpartisan ideas on how we move forward. And as a United States Senator, I proposed ideas, as you've heard in Michael's introduction, to expand the vision of national service. And I founded the Bipartisan National Service Caucus with my Republican colleague from Mississippi, Thad Cochran. He's been a tremendous friend, by the way, I'd add, and a powerful advocate, sitting on that Appropriations Committee, I might point out, where we're going to be trying to get the resources to back up the Kennedy-Hatch legislation and other ideas. Together, we've introduced the Summer of Service legislation for students across our country. And I was so delighted, by the way, to be here and listen to the presidents of Duke and the representative of Tufts and Bentley College and Penn, as well as the other universities who are participating in this program, talk about what they're doing to increase the opportunities for service at their institutions. But with all due respect, we need to step back. And it isn't just those institutions who are doing this. We need to make this available to the students at whatever college or university they go to. So it is approached that way. We applaud what these colleges are doing, but it ought to be student-centric in many ways. So we put forth a proposal that would encourage thousands more to join AmeriCorps and not only help them realize their dream of attending college, but to actually afford for that college education as well, which is going to be critical if we're going to succeed with this idea. And of course, I've watched and worked rather with to help the Peace Corps acquire the tools it needs for the 21st century challenges. Today, at this great gathering, I'm pleased as well to announce two final pieces of legislation to round out our stand on our vision of service to America, in addition to the Kennedy-Hatch bill you've heard about. The first is the Semester of Service Act, which says that opportunity to serve, and you've heard this already today, but we want to extend it beyond college education as well as to elementary and secondary schools, that the opportunity to serve has just or should have just as much a place in the education of our young people as a math problem or a book report. So often what happens is that the minute a student passes an exam, the information that they've learned is filed away almost forever. But being given the opportunity to put that knowledge into action, now that leaves an impression that can last a lifetime. If the online communities and volunteer rates of the younger generation teach us anything, and they're significant, it is, I believe, that this younger generation of Americans yearns for that shared experience that introduced them to the new people, give them a new perspective and commitment to our nation as well. And with a semester of service, we will ask our students to not only be residents in their communities, but to become, as you've heard as well, resources for those communities. And just as mine did, and our generation, I have no doubt whatsoever that this generation will respond to that challenge, given the opportunity, given the resources, and the incentives to do so. One of the greatest gifts that we can give our younger generation is, of course, the lessons of the previous one. And that is why I'm also pleased to announce at this summit the introduction of the Encore Service Act, which I'm pleased to say has been endorsed by AARP. And this will offer that older generation of Americans the chance to serve in their communities as well, to draw upon their experiences and to share them with the communities in which they live and also our nation. For their service to community, older Americans would receive an educational award, meaning grandmothers and grandfathers could literally put thousands of dollars toward their grandchild's education or college education savings accounts. And that ought to be one generation supporting another in so many different ways. The desire for new shared experiences and opportunities are never limited by age, race, or economic standing, but I believe only by our imaginations, our idealism, and our love of country. These efforts are based on the same fundamental idea. Every American ought to serve. Every American ought to be given the opportunity to serve. And with these ideas that I've outlined, every American should be given that chance. That is why I'm asking for your help to gather the support not only for the Kennedy-Hatch legislation, but the Semester of Service and the Encore legislation as well. The truth is, we're not gathered here to talk just about legislation or to read white papers, but ideas and ideals on how to put them into action. And thinking back to my own Peace Corps experiences, I still marvel at the notion that a great nation would send its citizens abroad, mostly its younger citizens, not to extend its power, not to intimidate its enemies, not to kill or be killed, but to build, to dig, to teach, and to ask nothing in return. The Peace Corps was one of the most radical ideas of its day, not the kind of idea that came out of a subcommittee or a board meeting, or whatever you would have as the 1960s equivalent of the PowerPoint. Rather, it was the kind of idea that you stumble on in the wee hours, after your third cup of coffee, when all the more convenient business of the day has been long put to bed, in a sense. But with people like Richard Nixon calling the Peace Corps, and I quote him, a juvenile experiment, how in fact did it happen? And that's what we're here today to ask. How do we take these ideas and make them happen? Many of us may be familiar with the story of the genesis of the Peace Corps, how at 2 a.m. on a campaign stop at the University of Michigan in the fall of 1960, then Senator John Kennedy found 10,000 students waiting and had waited all evening to greet him on their campus. And he challenged them to serve in that wee hour morning. What we may be less familiar with is the speech he gave about a month later before the campaign concluded at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, where he laid out the practicalities of the Peace Corps and service and how it could advance America's place in the world. There he laid out a very simple idea. You can't hate America if you know Americans. How can you hate someone helping your child get the nutrition he or she needs, or build them a schoolhouse that they may not have? You can't. And that principle holds every bit as true here at home as it does abroad. We may be the richest nation in the world, but we all know we can't write a check for all of our problems. And given the return on service, it's astonishing that what we spend every year on AmeriCorps and on the Peace Corps, we spend in Iraq in one single day. That has to change, in my view. We ought to be doing far better than that. So, in a sense, Service Nation, you have it right. This isn't a moment for baby steps. Harris Wofford had it exactly right. And I know the history well of what Sarge Shriver and Warren Wiggins, names like Warren Wiggins long forgotten, what they brought to the table in that fall of 1960 and the early months and days, rather, of 1961, with a large idea, a big idea. Because when we think big, when we do that, it isn't just our policies that become more effective, our politics do as well. Imagine, if you would, after inspiring a generation with his talk of towering problems and torches being passed to a new generation, President Kennedy had announced nothing more than a stripped-down, underfunded bureaucracy. It would have been tantamount to extreme disappointment at best and outright hypocrisy at worst. This is all by way of saying, let's not forget that all that you heard just yesterday in these conversations and talks and these panel discussions this afternoon, all that we've heard is it's time to establish our collective responsibility these next few months to ensure that these words, that these speeches, all of these expectations are going to be translated into action. If it's only just a gathering to listen to each other, talk about service, and we don't take these ideas and then translate them into action, then this summit will be long and quickly forgotten. But if we take what we're hearing here and translate it into ideas that can become the law of this land, we can make a difference for our country and desperately needed in this, the 21st century. Instead of fighting among ourselves, let's highlight the extraordinary things that ordinary citizens can accomplish together when we are given that opportunity. Instead of talking about what we can't do, let's talk about what we can and must do as a people and as a nation, and how the role that service plays in achieving those goals. Let's push our leaders with everything we have to lead as boldly as they campaign, and then to invite and inspire us as they govern. This is the moment. Let's seize it. Let's translate it from talk into action. And I thank you for listening this afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, Robert.